hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Trish Costello with Portfolio, and I am so excited about this hour that we have with Kate Ryder. So, Kate, so thrilled to have you, and I know you've had a day of being on presenting all day. I've already seen you first thing this morning speaking about what you're doing with Maven Clinic, but I'm going to give just a kind of a quick overview first, and then we're going to jump right into Kate's story. So most of you know that we have venture funds. In fact, we're just launching our 10th venture fund now, which is Femtech 2. So the second Femtech fund for Portfolio, and we were the first venture capital fund to ever focus specifically on Femtech when we launched Femtech 1 just 2.5 years ago now. And we've made over 50 investments today. And we love all of the companies that we back, and all of those investments are really amazing and are doing some really spectacular work. But there's probably no portfolio company out there that we don't have a higher view of than Maven Clinic. All 4 of our active venture capital funds 4 months ago actually invested in Maven Clinics, in Kate Ryder's company. And this is by far about 2.5 times larger than any other investment that we've made. So there's over 1,000 of our investors, of our member investors across those 4 funds that now own a small piece of Maven Clinics. And with that kind of investment at such a broad level, we are just so connected with wanting to make sure that this is the most successful investment we have, and that we're able to do all that we can to do our part to enable Kate and Maven Clinics to meet their highest goals and greatest vision of what they're putting together. But, we often come together on every month, and we're evaluating companies, or we're doing, quarterly reports, and we're really getting into kind of the meat of what the company's doing. What we're trying to do and what we're doing now, this is our second in the founder's journey, where we're really taking a step back, and instead of looking at either a whole portfolio of companies that we have in a fund, or doing a drill down and evaluating a company, or looking at what it's doing quarterly, we're really taking a step back and being able to have, an hour with one of our entrepreneurs and go way deeper and really kind of look at the entrepreneur's journey, both to understand the company itself. So we'll talk about that and where Kate's taking it and her big vision, where she is today. And then we really want to go back and just look at what's brought her here. Even early, what kind of got those entrepreneurial juices moving, how she, kind of the whole story of the company from the very beginning, when she started really ideating about creating Maven Clinic, and what it was at the beginning and what that journey has been. And Kate, we want you to tell us the ups and the downs of it, because we know it can be a roller coaster ride, and especially for women raising money, and oftentimes in the femtech space. So that's really the view. That's how this is different. This hour with Kate is different than what we often do. So Kate, let's jump in and just get started. So where are you now? Tell us what your big vision is.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much to everyone on the phone who invested in Maven. And I love women investors. I love the fact that as we become more successful, more women profit from that. And obviously, hopefully, as we become more successful, more women get better healthcare. That's obviously the mission of the company. So thank you so much. And it was a good investment. We'll be announcing some exciting news soon. But anyway, so basically, we started in 2014, and the vision was always to create a more equitable system for women and families, and really put particularly the female healthcare consumer at the center of healthcare, where she should be, because she drives 80% of decisions, and she outspends men by 70% during her core kind of reproductive years. And it's a $3.5 trillion system. So there really should be many more services addressing, the unique needs of women and then the families that they're often the chief medical officers of. And there's not enough. Women are underserved in healthcare. And so where we started is, okay, how do you build a virtual care platform that is specifically tailored to, where we're starting is the family planning and family building process. So fertility, maternity, and the early pediatric care. Our core innovation, I'd say, in the early days was we have the largest telemedicine network in women's and family health. We were the first one to ever launch, and today we have 2,000 providers across 25 specialties. So if you're going through IVF, you can talk to genetic counselors and reproductive endocrinologists and mental health providers. If you're going through pregnancy, you get access to lactation consultants and women's health physical therapists and OBGYNs and doulas and midwives. Across race and gender and ethnicity. We have over 30 languages spoken on our platform. And so really it was, how do you fill in the gaps in care in the traditional care model? And then, how do you then leverage that into a business model that really can start to innovate from within the system and not just from outside of it as a consumer only product? And so what we've done is we've taken all of our telemedicine, and then we also have care advocates that are really focused on maternal care, fertility, and just that intersection of working parenthood and life and the healthcare system. And we have clinical programs across IVF, egg freezing, surrogacy, adoption, pregnancy, parenting and pediatrics, and pregnancy loss. And we sell those programs to employers as an employee benefit. And those programs can help empower all pathways to parenthood, bring a diverse and inclusive culture. To working parents at companies, help retain women in the workforce, and then ultimately drive cost savings on the maternity side. And we also sell those programs to health plans, both for their employer clients. So it's just a resell into large companies, but then also for their fully insured populations that they take risk on. So that's, that's where, again, it's just all about clinical savings. And then where we're going is, there's 4 million babies born every year. 2 million are on commercial health plans, but 2 million are on Medicaid. And so we'll be building out our Medicaid product next year, probably launching it in 2022. And really we're excited because that can really start to tackle some of the big disparities in care that you see, and particularly issues like the maternal, mortality rate being the highest in the developed world in the US. And so we want to make sure that we started with commercial and working parenthood, but that we're able to really flex and expand into, all parts of maternal health, no matter, where you work or how you get your health care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are you seeing that's happening now, Kate? And one of the reasons that we just found you so compelling is that you're just all the stronger. You're just all the more important with what's happening with COVID. What are you seeing? I mean, you just must be right in the middle of this, tornado here with parents at home and women looking at, and are women trying to get pregnant now? I mean, what's actually happening out there?
Yeah, so good question. So on the pregnancy side, what's really interesting is because, some of our clients, when they're looking at their claims right now, they actually think that it's going to be flat year over year from a pregnancy standpoint. But it's been really, really spiky. So almost universally, January and February, there were more people getting pregnant than there were the previous, Q1 2019. But then you saw like no one getting pregnant in April. So then there was like a huge drop. But then now it's come back again. And so it's just, it's really spiky according to some of our big clients, but they're projecting the same pregnancy rate from last year, which I found really interesting. That, I think it just goes to show you that the biological clock is real. So you can delay for a few months, but at a certain point, people are going to assess the risk and try again. And then on what we're seeing, so what's been so interesting for our product team is that you can kind of see where COVID's hitting based on utilization in the app. So we were like, particularly in the early months, like, you saw the coast, just the utilization spiking. And then as COVID has kind of hit and case rates have gone up and OBGYN clinics have closed, particularly in those early months, we saw a lot of spikes in those parts of the country. And so you were able to kind of map some of the telemedicine utilization on Maven to the actual case rates across the country. We've seen in the first 3 months, we saw a 300% spike in mental health visits. I think, there's clearly a big need for that. We also saw a 200% spike in doula visits because I think a lot of people were assessing their birth plans and trying to make decisions. I think it's gotten better now, but for those first 3 months, it was all around, do I give birth at home? Or if I can't bring my partner into labor and delivery, what do I do? So we've definitely seen, just in general, a lot more utilization in our products, which is great because the more engagement and utilization we get, actually the more outcomes that we can drive. So, and then, from an actual benefits buying standpoint, we're launching our parenting and pediatrics product in a month. I think we have a big launch announcement in 2 weeks on it, but and we have definitely seen employers struggling to keep up with all the caregiving requests that they're fielding from their employees and trying to create really innovative solutions. And then we've also seen one surprising trend has been that fertility is not necessarily seen as a nice to have right now. It's seen as a need to have. So we've actually seen the fertility market continuing to stay really, really healthy. Of course, we've seen lots of employers push benefits buying to 2022 or 2021 or 2022, but there's still a very healthy market because I think people see fertility, maternity, and then all the needs of parents as a core benefit.
Mm-hmm. So your buyer is that corporate partner that's wanting to provide these benefits. That's your main customer right now. How are you seeing the trends changing with how corporations are looking at supporting women and supporting families? And do you see that going beyond? We're in San Francisco, and a lot of the tech companies have to be aggressive about providing benefits. Do you see that happening around the country? What's your, you probably have a better finger on this than about anybody else.
Yeah. So just the trends around what benefits buyers are caring about.
Or the corporate leadership's interest in really supporting women.
In women, yeah. It's funny. I think that overall the trend is that they care because you see markets like ours kind of exploding with growth. But I think that sometimes there was a New York Times article a few weeks ago that where people at, I think it was Facebook and Salesforce, were complaining that benefits teams were doing too much to support parents. And I think that, I think that we're living right now, like clearly women are being set back with this pandemic. And, we see mainstream media articles covering this, and lots of surveys are being taken right now. And something like 20% of women are thinking about quitting their job. And so it's terrible. I think that benefits teams are just inundated with a lot of different needs. And so what they're trying to do is figure out ways to support everyone and not just groups. I think, so it's interesting because I think that's why as a we don't say we're a women's health company. We say we're a women's and family health company. We support, women's health is very core to what we do, but we also have tracks for dads, and we support, we support family health. And that's really the path you have to take if you're going to be selling into corporate America, because they don't want to buy gender specific benefits. However, on the health plan side, it's all about women's health, because it's all about the clinical issues that arise around labor and delivery and C-section rates and babies, being born prematurely and postpartum depression. And so that is, when we're talking to payers, it's about a maternity program. But when we're talking to employers, it's about a family program. So it's very interesting how the market is evolving.
Yes, yes. And that question actually came in from Kelly Scalota, and that's one of our new major investors as well, who's coming in and backing an angel group that's also coming in and very involved with women's health. So talk with us about when you're looking at the corporate buyer, because we're in 42 states now and actually 14 countries. Is there a way that we can, pull the Maven product into the corporations where we're in leadership roles?
Yes, please. We would love that. So, we sell and work directly with the CHRO and then the benefits, total rewards, or the VP of total rewards. I think that so we have a client advisory board of Microsoft and Fidelity and the Hartford and XPO Logistics. So a very diverse group with a lot of different types of populations, from the tech worker to warehouse workers at XPO. And I think what we're hearing overwhelmingly from them is just like they're excited about Maven because of the focus on the end to end. So we start with preconception and fertility, but then we go all the way through working parenthood. And so really, I think the big kind of sell to the corporate buyer is, Maven is your family home, where we really can manage the costs of fertility and maternity, but then we do so much outside of that just helps manage working parenthood. And so that's really the core interest, I would say, that's in the market. And we're flexible. So if someone wants to start with our fertility product only, that's fine, and then build up to parenting, or we have buyers who just buy it all up front.
Wow. So shout out to our members. I know so many of you are in the C-suite in, companies all across America. So what we'll do, and Kate, we'll get the contact person that we should send these in, because I know we've assisted a number of other people, because of course we're, really linked in on a lot of those decision-making types of things. So for you all who are looking at this, and a number of you commenting who are saying this is a really great way for both for the company to save money on healthcare and for us to have healthier lives, we can really assist the company with some of our big corporate partners. And I know you're in like Bank of America and AT&T, are at a number of, so it's not just the tech companies. In fact, it's these other companies that are really making a difference, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have Microsoft, Bank of America, AT&T, Sanofi, BNSF. So we have a pretty diverse set of industries.
That's super. So some people are wanting to know, if their company is not yet a Maven client, is there a way to get services individually as a patient, or do you need to go through a corporate?
So to get access to our clinical programs, where that's the unlimited telemedicine and the pregnancy and IVF programs, that's paid for by the company. So you can only get that through your employer. But we do, access is part of our core mission. And so we do actually just have a marketplace of telemedicine providers that all specialize in women's health. And so that's available, to anyone. So you can download Maven from the App Store. And then, you can book an appointment within typically 10 minutes with an OB. You can get prescriptions. And so we don't really market that a lot. But we do see a few thousand patients just using it every month for support. And so it's also a global product. So, Maven's used in 175 countries. So that's our product, all about access.
Right. Well, and don't you have, this is like in 30 languages and dialects, and so the ability to really reach all types of customers, or reach them where they are, is so important, right?
Yep.
So many questions coming in, and I'm not surprised at all. I mean, sometimes it's a little longer. This is great to have so much of what we're looking at here. So one question that's just popped up is, do you feel like you're going to be impacted negatively or positively by the elections that's happening? Is that going to give you open up more opportunities, or do you have concerns?
So I can tell you it's very distracting right now, everything going on. And I think the divisiveness for, I think everyone working at Maven. So I think it's a tough time to lead companies right now through a lot of this. I mean, the first debate was last night. I think everyone can pretty much agree that was not a great showing for America. And so I think outside of that, I think that there's a lot of uncertainty around what's going to happen. There's a lot of stimulus money that has gone into the economy this year. We have to pay it back somehow. And so I think in general, whoever comes into power after this election, the economy is still going to be pretty hurt for a little bit. And so I think in general, I think the outcome, whoever takes the power, and also we don't know who's going to take the Senate too. You might have a Republican president with a Democratic Senate. You might have a Democratic president with a Democratic Senate. So I think that's going to, I don't know, but I think basically we are not projecting a strong economy in the next year by any means, just by virtue of this, of how much we have spent on all of the stimulus packages and how much, the country's still reeling from COVID. So that's really what we're focused on. I think digital health in general, and what we're seeing in our category is we're a little bit shielded from some of that, because whereas the employer market has slowed down a little bit, uncertainty is never good for budgets. And obviously some industries are really hit economically. The payer market has actually sped up, because the payer market does need to, the entire healthcare system is suddenly bringing digital innovation into it at a faster pace out of necessity than they ever have. So for us, I think we're going to have a good year in 2021, but it will be a lot of payer focused as well. And I think the outcome of the election, I don't know. I think the Supreme Court nominee as well, that could change a lot, because the ACA is up for debate. And if all of a sudden people with pre-existing conditions aren't covered, that's one of the key clauses of the ACA that the Supreme Court is going to rule on whether to overturn or not. That means everyone that got COVID has a pre-existing condition. And that also means we're trying to manage through a pandemic where we need transparency and good public health. That could add a shot of secrecy again for people who get sick. So there's a lot up in the air besides the election. And I think, we're just heads down continuing to innovate and find those partnerships to get our product into the hands of as many people as possible. And then that's why with Medicaid as well, there's a lot of opportunity in Medicaid, because Medicaid is going to be the biggest payer of healthcare services next year, given our unemployment. And 50% of babies are born to the Medicaid population, and so that's also a market we're really focused on.
Well, let's take a deep dive into that. And there's a number of questions around that. And as you know, the 4 funds that invested in Maven are Rising America, the Femtech Women's Health, First Step, which is a generalist fund, Active Aging and Longevity, and Rising America. And Rising America is really focused on people of color and LGBTQ. Oftentimes it's with a leader that's a person of color, or in the team, the LGBTQ in the executive team. And with you, so you do have one of your founders, I know, co-founders is LGBTQ, but we were really excited for the Rising America Fund because you had just closed your agreement with the Massachusetts Medicaid group and are really just Mass Health, and really just moving out into that space. So, tell us more about that, because it's just critical with what's happening with women of color giving birth.
Yeah, the racial disparities in care. A silver lining is that actually we're in meetings now with payers and they're talking about it, which is really, really encouraging. people are investing against this finally. So, many of those racial disparities in care occur in the Medicaid population. So to really start to tackle them, you really have to have a Medicaid product. For us, it's, I think the biggest mistake companies make when getting into this population and building a Medicaid product is that they take, whatever product they have for a commercial population, and then they just strip it down because there's lower reimbursement rates and lower rates in general for Medicaid. So they just strip out important features and then they just kind of plunk the product in the Medicaid population. We're taking a bit of a different approach. We've been on a listening tour for the last, 6 months or so. We're actually trying to imagine a product from the ground up. What do we need to do to address some of the major issues in these populations? They're issues of trust. They're issues of, providers not taking the voices and the concerns of Black women seriously. It's there's better outcomes when Black patients are matched with Black providers. So how do you start to facilitate some of that patient provider matching? There's just major logistical issues around Wi-Fi access and bandwidth, whether people can pay for data, whether people have the same phone number or the same email address that you can constantly be getting in touch with them, because addresses change a lot. People go on and off Medicaid, so there could be some kind of consistency of how do you continue to reach that member. And so really, to us, I think the keys to do it right are to operate at a local level. And so to take each local market by local market, where you're partnering pretty deeply with the community health workers in those markets, you're kind of on the ground, and then you develop a really flexible, easy to use product. We're thinking a lot of text messages are very common. They're so easy to do. So lots of messaging and just lots of perks where you're really focused on building that trust with the member and accessing them, like locating them, finding out where they are, how to get in touch, what's the best way to do that. And oftentimes it's the community health workers who know how to reach them. And then engaging in a way that is cultural. It's kind of culturally sensitive care. It's that, if you have a Spanish speaking mother, that we can match them to a Spanish speaking provider. If you have a Black mother, she's working with a Black care team. We actually surveyed our practitioners about this care matching, where, can we like, if a Black patient tells us she wants to have a Black care team, can we then put you on that? Is that fine? And 80% of our providers opted in for that, of our 2,000. So, I think there's a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to be doing in that product to really start to tackle that. And the other piece is data. You can't change anything if you don't have good data on what the problems are. And there's never been great data here. And so I think also just making sure that we're collecting all of the data to show the healthcare system, hey, if you treat a patient this way, or if you do this, then you will get better outcomes. So it's going to be hard, and I think our entire team is really excited. We just hired, one of a McKinsey partner, actually, who worked pretty much on maternal health and specifically on Medicaid products. And she started last week. So she's spearheading the strategy.
I love the work that you're doing in data. I think it's just so important. And, still there's just too much that seems like, the data is not clear, or the advice isn't clear, or sometimes the healthcare professionals not as up to date with some of the latest data. So the ability to really integrate that both into healthcare, better healthcare, as well as saving money is just so critical.
Yeah.
So I know we have we have so many questions coming in. So you've recently made an acquisition, in the parenting space. So tell us a little bit about that and how you've been able to integrate them. I think you took the CEO is now part of your executive team, and so talk a little bit about that. And are you looking at acquiring other companies? Is that part of the strategy going forward as you continue to expand your services?
Yeah, so we acquired Bright Parenting in March, and Steve, who was the former Chief Product Officer of Gilt Group and is Bright Parenting's founder, joined us. He's our VP of Product now under our Chief Product Officer. But basically the reason we did that is we wanted to make sure that with our parenting product that we combine both the clinical elements of pediatrics. And I noticed a question in the channel around, do we help families with special needs? Yes, we are bringing on, as part of this product, a lot of different providers that help families with kids with special needs. So pediatric behavioral health specialists, providers who work with kids with autism. We're bringing on, pediatric speech therapists and pediatric occupational therapists. And so, I think we have about 20 new provider types coming on as part of this program, with the assumption that a lot of families with special needs will be actually the heavy users of a parenting and pediatrics program. So we have all of those, those more clinical and virtual care type elements already in our platform. But we also wanted to do was to have this this weekly way to engage. If you're just kind of a parent looking for developmental support, because there's a total dearth. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And there's just like a dearth in content around good behavior, good kind of like good tips and habits for good childhood development. And so that's what Bright does. So Bright gives you these 5-minute lessons on how to support better parent-child relationships. And so, it could be like the one lesson, which was helpful to me, was before you yell at your child, tell them you're going to yell. And then oftentimes they'll change your behavior. And so all of the tips were kind of in conjunction with pediatric therapists and behavioral health specialists. So it's, there is a clinical component, but they're very joyful, they're very delightful, they're very fun to do. And so that's the content that we acquired to put in the product. But then it's also underpinned by our virtual clinic, which you have access to all of these providers, both the kind of generalist pediatricians as well as the hyper specialists when there's extra needs for a family. And so that's what we're launching in about a month. And we've already, so it's like 10 of our clients have already bought it for Gen 1.
That's super. Well, and then you've also have the product out on helping evaluate whether or not you should be sending your children back to school. I know that also has, and so, your team just seems to be really reacting or proactively addressing the issues that are just popping up, as we go through this kind of chaotic and unusual time.
Yeah, so luckily, like Bright was always on our roadmap before COVID hit. I mean, obviously we started the acquisition process like December, January, and then finished it up in March. So we were kind of lucky in the sense that we were already there. But I think one of the big trends we saw is over the summer, a lot of companies were looking for extra childcare support and extra help around this back to school and virtual learning. And so one of the things that we built into our product as well is we have, like partners. I mean, we already kind of had some of this in our maternity product, but we have childcare partners and virtual tutor partners, so that if people are looking for those extra layers of support, they can get it. And then we did in collaboration with Emily Oster, who's the economist who writes a lot about parenting for the New York Times. She's at Brown. She's written some great pregnancy books. And anyways, we did a collaboration with her on like a framework for how parents should think about sending their kids to school. And that framework, we have all sorts of those types of tools in the product. And so that we can kind of react in real time to issues that people are facing with COVID. So if you have to make a big decision around, sending your child to school or not, or sending your child to daycare, that we have some support for that. And we have childcare consultants as well in our product. I didn't even know there was a thing, but there is. And so they're helping parents think through options.
Oh, that's great. That's really exciting. So, well, I'll toss out as well. I mentioned it earlier. So all 4 of our funds did go into Maven, including active aging and longevity. So there's 2 things. First, I'm going to just mention, and then I'll ask a question on this. Active aging and longevity still has a few openings. We did a first close, and we were able to make this investment. And so there's still a few openings. So for some of you who are wanting to increase your investment in Maven, take a look at active aging and longevity before that fund closes here in the next 30 days, and you can be a part of it as well. So that's very exciting for us. But then the question is, and people are saying, when are you going to start moving, into menopause? So they want
Yeah, so we're just moving on up, right? So we started with maternity. We're at children's age 10, which I think gets into mid 40s. So yeah, there is absolutely going to be a point, and there's also an active menopause market coming up. So you also asked about future acquisitions, and I think I'm meeting with some of those founders and keeping our eyes on it. So I think we can't do everything all at once and boil the ocean, but we have a lot on our roadmap. And I think when I got asked the question recently, how much of our product roadmap have we built? It's probably about 5%, in my opinion. There's a lot of needs. And I think one of the things I'm excited about as we get into, that market is the fact, and we've heard requests from our clients too. And so I think we just have to figure out how to commercialize this. But obviously, there's gender differences in many diseases, the way heart disease affects women, the way cancer affects women. And so I think we're just at a point where people are really acknowledging it and specializing it. So, so we want to, as we continue to build out, if we bring cardiologists, for instance, one day on the platform, well, how do we bring on actually cardiologists with a specialty in women's health? And so I think you're starting to see more and more doctors kind of say they have that specialty in these very specialist areas that do affect, that are some of the diseases that kill women, some of the top diseases. So that's definitely an area alongside menopause. Obviously, that's a huge underserved area. I have a friend who's launching physical products in that space right now, so he's giving me a ton of education. And so yeah, I think it's exciting to see how much innovation is there, and if we're in a position where it makes sense to buy a company there or do it ourselves, we'll kind of cross that bridge. We have our Medicaid product to build first, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to be right there with you, Kate. We have invested in more companies in the menopause space than about anybody else out there. So because our Active Aging Fund is the third one. And then we've invested in as far as numbers, a larger number of women's health companies than any other single fund. So that's why it's so exciting to be a part of what Kate's doing, because boy, I agree. I mean, we're just seeing the very beginning of what you and Maven Clinic can do in the world. It's really thrilling. And many of you know you're all investors in Kate's company. This is a Series C, so this is one of the latest. We'll do seed A, B, and C, right? And so Kate's company represents the most mature. And so Kate, I mean, you're going to bring in probably $20 million in revenue this year. So you're really on that side where you're really scaling rapidly, but you still have so much growth left to do, so much opportunity, so much value to build. It's exciting. Yeah, love it. Well, let's talk a little bit. I know there's so many different, questions popping in here, but let's kind of go back a little bit and look a little earlier. When you were, oftentimes the vision and the path shifts, as you're building the company. I mean, what was the original vision for the company? And how did you start? And what are some of those kind of ups and downs? What was a little bit of the roller coaster ride that's taken you here?
Yeah, so back in 2014, there was definitely no thesis for women's health in a lot of the venture capital firms I was meeting. And at the time, I think because women's health wasn't even a market, our original, it was just women's health. It was not women's and family health. As we've evolved into, obviously, we have adoption programs that support same-sex couples. We have pediatric programs now that support children. So we've evolved into that. But in the very early days, it was just women's health. We're going to build a core product around pregnancy, postpartum, and helping that 43% of new moms who drop out of the workforce after having kids. How do we help the ones that want to stay? How do we make it better for them? And so that was really where we started. And it was really hard to raise money in those early days because VCs were primarily men, and just digital health hadn't proven itself yet like it has today. You didn't see a ton of exits. And I think I worked at a VC fund for 2 years in London. I worked at Index Ventures. And I remember when I was bringing some of the early digital health companies to the Index partnership, I mean, let alone, not including women's health. I mean, there were no women's health companies, but, pharmacy companies, PillPack or Omada, diabetes companies, everyone was kind of like, isn't healthcare just really regulated? How do you build a big business here? And so I think it was this double whammy and this problem with, two sides of the problem, which is no one understood women's health, but no one also understood healthcare. So yeah, it was tough, but I think I was able to cobble together some friends and family around through my network in London, through working in venture capital. So that helped us get off the ground. One of the, an index partner gave me the first $50,000 and was so helpful and was like, okay, go. And then our Series A was the worst by far. That was in 2017. We closed it in early 2017. But that was brutal because it takes a little bit longer to scale a healthcare company. And so we didn't yet have the numbers, but we had a lot of promising proof points. We had a really interesting pipeline. We had velocity on our consumer products. So we knew our product was working. So what we really needed was someone who had the capability to write a check to go write the check because they understood our problem. They saw the total addressable market. They believed in our team and they were ready to do it, which is how venture capital works at the Series A, right? You're taking a very early stage bet. And so what kept happening is, I never had problems meeting a partner we get really excited. Often a female partner would get really excited, or sometimes it was a dad, like he had just watched his wife go through childbirth, and he was like, "Oh, I understand what you're trying to do here." But then we would get rejected by the partnership because, then like around the larger table, it was just, there was a lot of people that didn't understand the problem we were trying to solve, and so yeah, it took about 30 or 40, maybe 50 meetings to finally meet the partner. And the way we were able to do it is we went with a smaller fund based in New York that was just a B2B fund, understood healthcare. And then the partner who did the deal was a woman who was pregnant with her third child. And she was very convincing and was able to kind of convince the partnership that this was a big problem. So then finally our Series A, after it was just really terrible. But then our Series B was co-led by Sequoia and Oak, and it was a very hot Series B. And by that point, we had just signed Bank of America as a client. So that was kind of that was a pretty big deal. Our revenue had jumped a ton. And so that was kind of the turning point. That was in 2018, where there were other companies in the category. We now had a category, and we had just signed the biggest customer in the category.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember Jeff Lee, who I know is on your board from Sequoia, when I was talking with her early on, and I had been watching you for a while too. And she had told me that that she had got the pitch for I think it was a little later, and didn't make the investment on the Series A. And it was one of those that had just stuck in her mind, watching, because she, I think she was still early in the partnership.
Yeah, it was like her first month at Sequoia.
Yeah. And it was like, it's that deal that we all have those. All of us in Invest has that deal that got away, that in our gut we really wanted to do it, but for whatever reason, weren't able to, or we weren't able to move fast enough. And so that's what she told me the minute she heard that you were out raising, that she ended up flying to New York to try to get in the deal. So, going from that really rough Series A raise to, being the hot company that the best funds were trying to get into, that's such a switch. What was that time period again between the A and the B raise?
It was about 18 months.
Yeah. And it was really bringing on those, a lot of the bigger corporate customers and filling out your team. Is that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I finally had a few execs, and we had, we didn't just have a bunch of small companies. We had now some real kind of Fortune 50 companies either kind of signed or in contracting.
So when we're looking, because so many of the companies we're looking at are very early stage, we are looking at a lot of women's, we look at a lot of health. And we also, as you're talking about, with our Femtech fund, which is you can hold your spot right now. The legal documents are just being finalized. But for the members that are on here, for those of you, it will open first to the people in Femtech 1. So they get the first choice to get into the fund, and then it opens up to all of our other members. But if you want to be on the list to come in, to be able to get into that once we go through our first group, drop that in now for us, or go to that site and go to our landing site there and hold that space. You know, that's an area where we don't just do, you know, as you say, you know, breasts and vaginas. We're looking at all those other things, like how women are experiencing pain, you know, differently, and you know, the issues of heart disease and all of that. Those are so critical. I mean, all of women's health, you know, has been underfunded for all these years, and you know, now it's really starting to break open. What advice do you have, Kate, for entrepreneurs and others who are wanting to jump into the women's health space, see opportunities, and because over a third of our group are related to the healthcare field, any advice you can give them would be great.
Yeah, I mean, jump in. That now is a great time to start a company because in women's health, because there's funding, but then there's also traction in the market. There's a lot of other companies in the market. I think one of the problems we had in the early days is there just weren't enough companies. So there wasn't enough pressure on people to take women's health seriously. Now there is, and everyone's kind of asking questions about it. Yeah, you know, there's so many different facets of it. I actually, I'm a Sequoia Scout, so I have invested in 2 women's health companies myself that, you know, are just there because there's so much opportunity. One is ULA Health, which is a standalone clinic that is between kind of a hospital and a birth center for maternity care. And then another one is Kama, which is sexual wellness for, you know, girls and women to teach better sex education, since that's really underserved. So there's just so many opportunities. And I think it all goes back to that statistic that women control 80% of healthcare decisions, and this is a $3.5 trillion industry. And so whether it's a product or it's information, or you're helping, you know, this core buyer make a decision, there's so much opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I see from Christine, she says, we have a lot of Christines. This is not our CJ Christine, but another Christine Lee physician. And she says, I'm a physician. I have many colleagues my age or older who are extremely qualified and have years of experience, but don't want to continue to work as hard as we do in the hospitals, et cetera. I see this as a perfect opportunity for physicians to stay active and purposeful and utilize all their knowledge and skills without the same kind of tiring schedule. So how are you finding your practitioners, and how are you tapping into this group? Because we do have so many that are out there.
So that's exactly our demographic. You've hit the nail on the head. So on the bottom of our website, you can actually apply to be a provider, and you go through an application process. So we do like an exam based on like a multiple choice exam based on the relicensing exams that people take, and then a case study, and that just kind of automatically is our filter. We have some, you know, like it has to be a board certified physician, so some quality metrics there. Then we do reference checks. Then we do an actual interview with a video interview with some of our on-staff providers. And then, you know, if all goes well, then they're accepted onto the Maven app, which is for physicians and other providers. It's called mPractice. And then basically, you get trained and onboarded. And mPractice is like the scheduling and the video calls and how people get paid every month. But yeah, we love it. And our medical director, Dr. Jane Vandis, one of the ways we recruit into this community is she actually runs these big Facebook groups full of OBGYN moms, a lot of whom feel this way. I mean, Jane is exactly that. She's a single mom of twins, and she's also an OB hospitalist. So, you know, she was actually on a very early morning sales call with me this morning, and she was still like at the hospital. She was like praying that she was going to get called into a C-section. But anyway, so she's, you know, she'll post in some of these communities, and then it's been word of mouth. And we're really lucky that we actually haven't actively had to recruit, because we get a certain number of people who just hear about us who apply for this exact reason, that it's they're still practicing, but they may not be practicing full time, but they still want to see patients. And one of the really interesting trends that we've seen, so we have too many providers. Like, we have so much supply because, and so we have, we cannot fill, like, we're getting there. I think we're rolling out with a really big health plan next year, but we have, thousands of appointments available every week that go unfilled. And we tell now, I mean, in the beginning we didn't, but we now tell providers who are new to the platform, we're like, listen, the utilization of our OBGYNs, because we have a lot, is about 20%. And so don't expect that if you set 5 hours of availability that you're going to get patients full for 5 hours. So if this isn't for you, that's fine. We'll let you know when you're going to get more than that. But people want to try it out. They want to. Some people are very new to telemedicine. And then what happens is, they find that, oh, well, if I just set that extra hour every day, I'm going to be at my desk anyway, doing other things. And maybe I only get 1 or 2 patients during that time. They're so helpful. Like they this market is so underserved, and women really need that support. Maybe they build relationships with those patients, and so then they start messaging with them. But it's we've heard that from a lot of our providers, because we ask them sometimes, like, why do you still set availability? Like, you only got 10% of your time booked last week. And they're like, well, because I love it. And I love helping these patients. So we attract these wonderful mission-driven doctors, nurse practitioners. Our on-staff providers are, the ones that are around the clock available. They have, very high utilization. But the ones who are just in our larger distributed network that kind of come and go and set appointments, hours as they please, they'll get patients, and they just keep coming back. So it's something that I remember when our investors and our board first saw that data, they're like, this doesn't make any sense. And like, well, have you ever considered that our providers just love providing care?
Oh, God, that's great. I have one more question that I'm going to pull out from this, and there's so many questions. And the nice thing is that we are going to have at least a 5-year life, I think, with Kate, because as she said, she's 5% in her product roadmap, and we're going to make sure that we're in any way that we can help her grow. That's what investing in women really is all about, because this is the perfect one. Investing in a top woman entrepreneur, creating a company that's really shifting the world for women, and to have 4 of our funds behind you. I just think it's just the perfect example of what we can do together. But Kate, I've had a number of questions asking about how you're planning to expand globally, and then I'm just going to ask you to kind of give us some last words of wisdom after that, because I know we're right coming up on time. So what's your global expansion?
So we are global today. So about 15% of our enterprise members are global. Our most popular countries are the UK, Australia, and India, and Canada. Obviously, we have some companies that are based in Canada that are clients. And I think that's a trend in the market that we've seen, is benefits parity across all offices. We're now, so we have care advocates in London. So we have a global staffing there. We have all these different languages, but we're now even at a point where we're developing workflows in our product around onboarding members that don't speak English or have really low health literacy. So it could be factory workers in India or China, and how to help them over the phone in their native language get onboarded onto the platform so they can see providers. So we're, that's on our near-term roadmap for particularly one big client we're launching next year. So international is very, very core to us.
Mm-hmm. That's so exciting. So again, because we're evangelists for more women coming in and backing these women-led companies and companies that really will enhance our lives. So if you have friends, so I'm talking to the members here, if you have friends or colleagues that are interested in women's health and FemTech, we're just announcing that we're launching FemTech 2. it's going to close fast. So send your friends if they are interested in femtech too. That's not, Maven will be doing another fundraise, but probably this one will not necessarily get in Maven. So that's not Femtech 2 is not in Maven. Active aging is, so that's the option if you want, to look further. And so that, and then I know there is a few people that are going to be getting together for another meeting after this. So watch for your click link if you're going to be in a follow-up meeting. So Kate, kind of give us your last little words as a woman entrepreneur and a woman really shifting the world in this space for women. How can we make a difference? How can we help you, and how can we make a difference perhaps on even a larger scale?
Yeah, I mean, so just thank you so much for your support so far. We would not be this far without all the women who have supported us. We had an all-female board after our Series B, so clearly that says something. So I think, just if there are corporate introductions to make, that's always really, really helpful. We see kind of coming in at the top of a company is really helpful, and then kind of in being introduced to the benefits leader there. And then health plans, it's not just companies, but payers. So we work with both regional payers as well as national. And so I think any kind of contacts at the health plans are always helpful. And then, we'll be hiring a chief medical officer soon. And so any leads on chief medical officers, I would love diverse candidates. And so that would, that would be great. Ideally, somebody who has worked in a company before, in a startup, so or a small company. But a lot of the job of the chief medical officer is not just to help scale, but also they're kind of in the front and center of the sales process with some of the health plans and whatnot. So I would say those are three areas where you guys could be really helpful.
Oh, that's fabulous, Kate. So this is so exciting. It's just really been wonderful to have you with us, and really to go deep and look at what you're creating and to get to know you better, and to let the membership both know you better as a person, as a CEO, and really be able to be a part of your vision as you grow this tremendous company with Maven Clinics. So thank you. All right, wonderful to have you all on today. This is also this recording will be on your dashboard, so you can go back and take another look and be able to share more of the information as well with the other members that haven't been able to be on. So it's really always fabulous to go on this entrepreneur's journey. So thank you so much, Kate, and we'll be chatting again here really quickly. And thank you all for being a part of it. And as always, keep us posted if there's any additional assistance that you need, or you want to go deeper with any of the investing experience. All right. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kate.